The massive council chamber stretched out like a small city with floating platforms and glowing screens everywhere. Jin Woo sat in the human section, which was just a tiny corner near the back where the newest members always had to stay. He wore his best diplomatic suit, but it looked plain next to the shiny robes and crystal armor of the other species. Around him, thousands of alien beings filled the grand space. The bird-like Kavari preened their golden feathers and clicked their beaks, in rhythm. The reptilian Essiskatar delegation hissed softly among themselves, their scales changing colors with their moods. The floating energy beings called Luminar pulsed in bright blues and purples, making the whole chamber glow like a rave party. Jin Woo had been Earth's ambassador for 3 years now, and every single day felt like being the youngest kid in a room full of adults who thought they knew everything better. The other species would pat humans on the head like cute pets and tell them how adorable their little ideas were. Today the council was voting on territory expansion again. Jin Woo already knew how this would go, but he had to sit through it anyway. Council Speaker Vextar stood on the center platform, his insect body gleaming. Under the lights, his forearms gestured dramatically as he spoke in that clicking voice that always sounded annoyed. The Kavari birds wanted 20 new star systems for their growing population. The council nodded and approved it quickly. The crystalline Zephyri asked for 15 systems to mine rare minerals, approved without question. The gaseous cloud dwellers requested 10 systems with the right atmospheric conditions, approved immediately. Then came humanity's turn. Jin Woo stood up and walked to the speaking platform, feeling every alien eye watching him. He cleared his throat and spoke into the amplifier that would translate his words into hundreds of languages. "We request permission to settle 12 new star systems," he said simply. "Our population is growing fast and we need more space for farming and cities. We have already identified suitable planets that nobody else is using." The chamber erupted in what sounded like laughter, but came from creatures that did not laugh the same way humans did. The Kavari made sharp chirping sounds. The reptilians hissed with amusement. The energy beings flickered rapidly like broken light bulbs. "Speaker." Vextar raised one of his 4 hands for silence. Then he looked down at Jin Woo with what humans would call a condescending smile if insects could smile. "The human request is denied," he announced. 3 systems should be more than enough for such a young species. "You must learn to use your space efficiently before asking for more." Jin Woo felt his heart sink, but he tried one more time. "Speaker Vextar, with respect, humans have been peaceful members of this council for 50 years. We have contributed to galactic science, medicine, and engineering. We have never started wars or caused problems. Surely we deserve the same consideration as other species." This time the laughter was louder and more mocking. A Kavari delegate stood up and spoke in their musical voice. "Oh, little human, you are so cute thinking you deserve the same treatment as advanced civilizations. You barely learned to fly between stars yesterday in galactic terms." A reptilian delegate joined in. "Young species must earn their place slowly, over centuries, not decades. You cannot expect to receive what took us millions of years to achieve." The energy being who spoke next made the air shimmer with their words. "Humans are still learning basic civilization. Your contribution to the galaxy is minimal compared to ours." Jin Woo stood there listening to them talk about humans like they were children playing dress-up. He thought about Dr. Min Jung, who had created vaccines that saved millions of alien lives. He thought about Engineer Dongsu, who had designed better power systems for 12 different species. He thought about Captain So Young, who had rescued alien ships from pirates dozens of times. None of that mattered to the council. They saw humans as newcomers who should be grateful for any scraps thrown their way. Speaker Vextar clicked his mandibles in what Jin Woo had learned meant satisfaction. "The decision is final. 3 systems for the humans. Take it or leave it." Something changed in Jin Woo's mind at that moment. For 50 years, Earth had been trying to fit in, trying to prove they belonged, trying to earn respect that would never come. These aliens did not see humans as equals. They saw them as useful pets at best. Jin Woo looked around the massive chamber, at all the advanced species who thought they were so much better than humans. He thought, about all the human scientists, doctors, engineers, and explorers who had spent their lives helping these ungrateful aliens. He walked back to the speaking platform very slowly. The entire chamber was watching him, expecting him to bow his head and accept the insult like humans always did. Instead, Jinwoo stood straight and tall. He looked directly at Speaker Vextar and spoke clearly into the amplifier. The human delegation formally withdraws from the Galactic Council, effective immediately. Words echoed through the chamber in hundreds of languages. There was complete silence for several seconds as thousands of alien minds tried to process what they had just heard. Speaker Vextar's mandibles clicked rapidly, which Jinwoo knew meant confusion and anger. You cannot withdraw from the Council. No species has ever left voluntarily. This is impossible. Jinwoo smiled for the first time in months. Nothing is impossible. Speaker Vextar, we joined this council as free beings. We can leave as free beings. Good luck managing the galaxy without us. He turned and walked toward the exit. The other human delegates followed him, their faces showing the same quiet determination. The alien species watched in shock as the entire human delegation simply left in the corridors outside the chamber. Jinwoo activated his emergency communicator. President Sujin's face appeared on the small screen, her expression serious but not surprised. It is done, he said simply. They made their choice. Now we make our. Sujin nodded. I have been waiting for your signal. The withdrawal order goes out in 1 hour. Every human in galactic space will receive instructions to come home. Within minutes of Jinwoo's announcement, emergency communications were flying. Across the galaxy, human ships received coded messages. Human colonies got evacuation orders. Human workers at alien facilities were told to pack their things immediately. The great human exodus was beginning, and the galaxy would never be the same again. Captain Hyman received her orders while patrolling the outer rim. Her fleet of human ships immediately changed course, heading back toward Earth space. When alien ships tried to contact her demanding explanations, she gave them the same answer. Jinwoo had given the council good luck. All across the galaxy, humans were quietly and efficiently packing up their lives. They did not argue or fight or make threats. They simply left with the dignity that had defined humanity's approach to galactic politics. The aliens who had laughed at them just hours before were about to discover exactly how much they had underestimated the species they called primitive and cute. The breaking point had been reached, and there was no going back. 6 months after the human exodus, the Galactic Council was meeting in emergency session for the 15th time that month. The grand chamber that once buzzed with arrogant confidence now echoed with panic and desperation. Half the floating platforms were dark because their power systems had failed without human maintenance. Speaker Vextar stood on the central platform, but his proud posture was gone. His insect body looked smaller somehow, and his forearms trembled as he spoke. The situation across the galaxy continues to worsen, he announced, trying to keep his voice steady. The death toll from the wars between species had reached 10 million beings. The Reptilian Empire and Insect Confederacy were still fighting their bloody conflict that had started over a mining dispute. 3 other species had joined the fighting, turning it into the largest galactic war in centuries. Food shortages were killing entire populations on worlds that had depended on human agricultural science. The beautiful Kavari bird people were facing extinction as their planet could no longer feed its billions of inhabitants. Their golden cities were full of starving refugees. The crystal spires of the Celestial Empire continued collapsing every day. Whole cities disappeared into rubble as the molecular bonds failed without human knowledge to maintain them. The energy beings called Luminar were dimming and dying because they could not process energy without human-made conversion crystals. Most terrifying of all, the advanced AI species were going insane as their quantum computers failed. Human programmer Wu Jin had been quietly debugging their code for 12 years, fixing errors before they became critical problems. Now, without his invisible work, the AI minds were fragmenting into madness. Council members who had once laughed at human requests now sat in stunned silence as reports poured in from across the galaxy. Trade networks completely collapsed, military fleets stranded without fuel, entire star systems going dark as power grids failed. Representative Klax Ron of the Insect Confederacy, raised one of his 6 arms to speak. His voice filled with desperate anger. "This catastrophe is clearly the result of human sabotage," he declared. "They must have planted hidden programs in our systems designed to fail when they left." Several other council members nodded eagerly, wanting to believe this explanation. Speaker Vextar clicked his mandibles hopefully. Yes, that must be it. The primitive. Humans could not have been so essential to our civilization. They must have deliberately weakened our systems. But even as they spoke these words, most council members knew they were lying to themselves. Deep down, they understood the terrible truth. The humans had not sabotaged anything. They had simply been holding galactic civilization together through their quiet competence, and when they left, everything fell apart. Captain Tae-ho monitored alien communications from his stealth ship hidden in an asteroid field near the old council chambers. His advanced sensors picked up thousands of desperate messages that the aliens thought were secret. The proud Kavari governor Chir Ral was sending coded transmissions begging for food supplies. "Please," he whispered into his communicator, thinking no one could hear. "We will give you anything you want. Gold, rare crystals, entire star systems. Just send us the synthetic grain formula before our people starve." The Celestial Empire's master architect, Lux Andra, was frantically trying to contact human engineers on dozens of frequencies. "Our greatest cities are falling," she pleaded. "We were wrong about your people. Please help us save millions of lives." Even the warlike reptilian General Escavor was secretly reaching out to human military advisors. His scaled fingers trembled as he recorded his message. "The war is going badly," he admitted. "We forgot how to fight properly without human tactical support. Our enemies are crushing us." Tae-ho listened to hundreds of these secret pleas as proud alien leaders swallowed their arrogance and begged for human help. But Earth's government had made its position clear. No individual assistance would be provided while the Galactic Council maintained its official stance. The alien attempts to reverse engineer human technology were failing spectacularly. The ethereal beings tried to copy human power systems, but their crystal matrices exploded, killing dozens of researchers. The Aquarian fish people attempted to recreate human medicine, but their versions poisoned patients instead of curing them. Dr. Vexquan, the head of Kavari Science, stood in his ruined laboratory surrounded by the wreckage of failed experiments. For months his team had tried to duplicate human agricultural techniques, but every attempt ended in disaster. How did they make it look so simple? He wondered aloud, staring at the burnt remains of synthetic grain cultures. The human farmer Jin Ho used basic chemistry, but somehow achieved results we cannot replicate with our most advanced equipment. His assistant scientist Morkill examined the chemical analysis reports. "Sir, I think the humans were not just using chemistry. They were using intuition and creativity in ways that our logical minds cannot understand." Dr. Vexquan threw the reports across the room in frustration. "Are you saying humans are actually more intelligent than us? That is impossible." But the evidence was everywhere. Alien species with technology, thousands of years more advanced than human science, could not duplicate the work of human farmers, doctors, engineers, and artists. The creativity and adaptability that other species had dismissed as primitive chaos was exactly what made human solutions work. Time-manipulating Chronarch Empire discovered they could not maintain temporal stability without human-designed stabilizers. Master Chronarch Temporal watched his time streams collapsing into paradoxes. "We never understood how the human stabilizers worked," he told his council. "The devices seemed simple, but they operated on principles that our mathematical minds cannot grasp. The quantum physicists of the cosmic void species found their reality manipulating experiments going wrong without human safety protocols. Professor Voidwalker saw dimensional rifts opening that threatened to destroy entire star systems. Human physicist Dr. Park Sung designed safeguards that prevented cosmic disasters," his assistant explained. But he never wrote down exactly how they worked. He said it was based on feeling the flow of quantum energy. These impossible explanations drove alien scientists to madness. How could primitive humans understand cosmic forces better than species who had studied physics? For millions of years, Meanwhile, on Earth, Ambassador Kyung-soo received thousands of secret messages from individual aliens begging for help. A Kavari child sent a drawing asking human farmers to save her starving family. A crystalline artist offered his life's work in exchange for structural repair knowledge. A reptilian mother pleaded for medicine to save her sick offspring. Kyung-soo read each message with growing sadness. These individual aliens were not responsible for the Council's arrogance, but Earth's government could not help them without undermining the larger lesson that had to be learned. President Soo-jin stood at her office window looking up at the stars where chaos was consuming the galaxy. Every instinct told her to send help to the suffering beings, but she knew that individual kindness would only delay the moment when the aliens finally accepted the truth. The galaxy had to hit rock bottom before it could rebuild on a foundation of mutual respect instead of arrogance. The lesson was harsh but necessary, and it was far from over. The collapse was accelerating and the worst was still coming. Trade Captain Yoon-ho stood on the bridge of his cargo ship looking at the star charts one last time. His vessel carried supplies that 15 different worlds needed every month, food, medicines, machine parts, and rare materials that kept alien civilizations running smoothly. For 12 years he had followed the same route, stopping at Kavari bird worlds to deliver synthetic grain that their crops could not produce. He brought water purification tablets to the desert planets of the SSK Tar, reptilians. He carried power crystals to the energy-being worlds where the Luminar lived. Now his ship was heading home to Earth, and those worlds would have to figure out their supply problems without him. His first officer, Min-ho, looked worried. "Captain, what will happen to the trading stations when we leave?" "Some of those worlds depend on our deliveries." Yoon-ho shrugged. "That is not our problem anymore. They wanted to treat us like children so they can learn to take care of themselves like adults." 3 days later, the cargo ship reached the first checkpoint where alien officials always inspected human vessels. A Kavari inspector flew aboard, flapping his golden wings. "Importantly, where are your cargo manifests?" he demanded. "I need to see what supplies you are bringing to our worlds." Yoon-ho handed him an empty data pad. "We are not bringing supplies to your worlds anymore. We are going home." The bird creature stared at the blank screen with his round yellow eyes. "This must be some mistake. You cannot just stop delivering our food supplements. Our people will starve without the synthetic grain. That sounds like a problem for the Kavari government to solve." Yoon-ho replied calmly. "Maybe you should have thought about that before voting. To give us only 3-star systems." The inspector squawked in panic and flew off the ship, immediately sending emergency messages to his superiors. Within hours, similar scenes were playing out across the galaxy as hundreds of human traders announced they were going home. Dr. Min Jung packed her medical research equipment on the disease control station orbiting the planet Nexus Prime. For 8 years, she had worked alongside alien scientists studying plagues that affected different species. Her human brain had a unique way of seeing patterns that the other researchers missed. She had developed vaccines for the aquarian fish people, saving them from a deadly water fungus. She had created medicine for the crystalline Zephyri that prevented their bodies from cracking during temperature changes. She had found cures for 7 different diseases that were slowly killing various alien populations. Her alien colleagues watched in confusion as she sealed her research files and prepared to leave. "Dr. Min Jung, you cannot abandon your work here," protested Dr. Klaxron, a tall insect being with multiple arms. "We are in the middle of studying the red plague that affects our hive worlds." The human woman looked at him with tired eyes. "Dr. Klaxron, for 8 years I have shared my research freely with all of you. I have worked extra hours to solve problems affecting species that are not even human. And yesterday, your government voted to restrict human expansion because we are too primitive to deserve more space. But the diseases," she insisted. "Your departure will set back our research by decades." Min Jung picked up her equipment case. "Then maybe your advanced civilizations should have thought about that before insulting mine." She walked toward the shuttle that would take her to the human transport ship. Within a week, similar departures were happening everywhere. Human doctors left alien hospitals. Human researchers abandoned joint projects. Human medical experts who had been quietly solving health problems for dozens of species simply packed up and went home. Engineer Dong-soo had spent 15 years designing power systems for alien space stations. His human creativity had found ways to make energy flow more efficiently than any alien engineer had managed. The massive trading hub called Central Point relied completely on his power grid design. 3 orbital cities belonging to the ethereal beings used his crystal matrix systems to convert starlight into usable energy. The Hive Queens had built their entire industrial complex around power cores that Dongsu had invented. Now he was dismantling his workstations and preparing to leave. The alien supervisors panicked when they realized what was happening. "Engineer," Dongsu pleaded, Station Commander Vixtal, "you cannot remove these systems. They power everything here. Without your maintenance, the entire station will shut down." Dongsu continued packing his tools. "I trained your people for years to understand these systems. They said they did not need human help anymore, so they can prove it, but we do need your help." Vixtal insisted. "We were wrong to vote against human expansion." The human engineer stopped working and looked at the alien commander. "Then why did you vote against us? Why did your delegation laugh when we asked for the same treatment other species receive?" Vixtal's energy form flickered with embarrassment. "We thought humans would always be here to help us." "We did not realize you might leave. That was your mistake," Dongsu replied. He finished packing and headed for the exit. Good luck keeping the lights on. The same scene repeated across the galaxy. Human engineers withdrew their support for critical infrastructure systems that they had built and maintained for decades. Power stations started failing without human oversight. Transport networks broke down without human coordination. Captain So Young commanded a small fleet of human patrol ships that had been protecting trade routes from pirates for 20 years. Her ships were fast and her crews were brave. The alien merchant vessels had grown dependent on human protection. When the withdrawal order came, she immediately recalled all her ships from their patrol routes. The alien traders, who had been traveling safely under human protection, suddenly found themselves alone in dangerous space. A Kavari merchant captain sent frantic messages to So Young's ship. "Please continue protecting our trade convoy. The raider clans are active in this sector." So Young responded with cold professionalism. "That is no longer our responsibility. Contact your own military for protection, but our warships are too slow to escort merchant vessels," the alien pleaded. "You humans have the fastest ships and the best tactics." So Young almost laughed at the irony. "Yesterday your species voted to limit our expansion because we are too primitive. Today you want our protection from pirates. Make up your minds." The communication went silent. The Kavari merchant ships tried to travel without escorts, and within days 3 convoys were attacked by raiders. The aliens, who had felt so superior to humans, suddenly realized how much they had depended on human military protection. All across the galaxy, the first cracks were starting to show. Systems that had worked smoothly for decades began breaking down. Supplies stopped flowing to worlds that needed them. Diseases that had been controlled started spreading again. Power grids failed without human maintenance. Pirates attacked merchant ships without fear. The proud alien civilizations that had laughed at human requests for equal treatment were about to learn a very expensive lesson about taking their helpers for granted. Professor Chan Wu had been the quiet diplomat who solved problems before they became wars. For 18 years he had mediated disputes between species, preventing conflicts that could have killed millions. His human ability to see all sides of an argument had kept the peace. Now, he was going home and taking his peacekeeping skills with him. Old grudges between species that had been carefully managed were about to explode into violence. The galaxy was losing its most effective peacemaker, and did not even realize it yet. The first month after human withdrawal was just the beginning. The real chaos was still coming. 3 months had passed since the humans left, and the galaxy was starting to fall apart, like a machine with missing pieces. Farmer Jin Ho had been developing special food sources for 12 different alien species on his research station near the edge of known space. His laboratory grew synthetic proteins that the Kavari birds could digest easily. He had created mineral supplements that kept the crystalline Zeph Uri from cracking during their molting seasons. His hydroponic farms produced vegetables that could feed the herbivore species without poisoning their delicate systems. Now his empty research station drifted in space while alien worlds faced the first real famines they had experienced in decades on the beautiful world of Kavari Prime. The bird people were discovering that their natural grain crops could only feed half their population. The other half had been surviving on Jinho's synthetic food for 20 years, but no Kavari scientist knew how to make it. Governor Chiral stood before the planetary council, his golden feathers dulled with worry. "We have enough food for maybe 6 more months," he announced. "Our population will begin starving unless we find new sources. But surely our scientists can replicate." The human food production methods suggested Councillor Vectar. Governor Chiral shook his head sadly. "We tried. The human farmer used techniques that our people never bothered to learn. We thought his work was simple because he made it look easy. Similar food shortages were happening on 15 other worlds that had depended on human agricultural science. The proud species that had called humans primitive were about to learn what real hunger felt like." Meanwhile, pilot Sung Min had been running the most efficient shipping network in the galaxy for 18 years. His transport ships moved goods between star systems faster than anyone else, because he had figured out shortcuts through hyperspace that other species never discovered. Without his shipping routes, cargo that used to take 2 weeks to deliver now took 2 months if it arrived at all. The careful timing that kept galactic trade running smoothly was completely broken on the industrial world of Mechanicus. The factory owners were panicking. Production manager Zexcol stood in his empty warehouses staring at the bare shelves. "Where are our raw materials?" he demanded from his assistant. "The shipments from the mining world should have arrived weeks ago." His assistant checked the shipping schedules nervously. "Sir, the human pilot Sung Min used to coordinate all our deliveries. His ships carried supplies from 16 different worlds on precisely timed routes. Without him, nobody knows how to manage the logistics." Zexcol's mechanical body sparked with anger. "How hard can it be to fly ships between planets?" "Very hard, apparently. The alien pilots who tried to replace human shipping took 3 times longer to make the same journeys. They got lost in hyperspace. They missed delivery deadlines. They crashed into asteroids because they did not know the safe routes that humans had mapped over decades. Prices for basic goods shot up everywhere as supply chains collapsed. Luxury items became impossible to find. The wealthy noble classes of various species suddenly could not get their imported delicacies and rare artifacts. Professor Chan Wu had been the invisible diplomat who prevented wars for 20 years. He would quietly meet with leaders from hostile species and help them find peaceful solutions to their conflicts. Most aliens never even knew he existed, but his careful mediation had stopped dozens of wars before they started. Now ancient grudges between species were flaring up again without his calming influence. The Reptilian Empire and the Insect Confederacy had hated each other for centuries, but Chan Wu had always found ways to keep them talking. Instead of fighting, General S.K. Vor of the Reptilian Fleet stood on his command bridge watching enemy insect ships gathering near the disputed border system. His scales turned angry red as he spoke to his officers. "The bug people are claiming ownership of the Praxis system again," he hissed. "They say our mining operations are illegal." His tactical officer checked. "The combat readiness report, sir, in the past." The human diplomat Professor Chan Wu would arrange meetings between our leaders to discuss these disputes peacefully. General S.K. Vor snorted contemptuously. "We do not need human weaklings to solve our problems. We are warriors. We will take what is ours by force." 3 days later, the first battle in 50 years erupted between the reptilians and the insects. Both sides had forgotten how devastating their weapons could be. The space battle destroyed 2 planets and killed millions of beings. Similar conflicts broke out across the galaxy, as species that had lived in peace for decades suddenly remembered their old hatreds. Without human mediation, every small dispute escalated into violence. The beautiful crystal spires of the Celestial Empire were beginning to crack and crumble. Master Architect Luxandra watched in horror as her greatest creation started falling apart. The molecular bonds that held the crystal structures together were failing. She had always assumed the crystal maintenance was done by her own people, but now she discovered that human scientist Dr. Yun Young had been secretly stabilizing the molecular structure for 15 years. Without her invisible work, the Empire's greatest cities were slowly dissolving. "We must contact the humans immediately," Luxandra told the Imperial Council. "Our entire civilization is literally falling apart." But the council speaker, Sel Moran, shook his crystalline head proudly. We cannot show weakness by begging the primitive humans for help. Our advanced science will find a solution. 2 more crystal cities collapsed that week, killing thousands of celestial beings. The massive hive structures of the insect confederacy were having similar problems. Queen Brixnall watched her greatest hive city sinking into the ground as the support systems failed. Human engineer Dong Su had designed the underground support network that held up her city of 10 million insects, but she had never paid attention to how it worked. Now, without his maintenance, the entire structure was collapsing. Send messages to the human world, she ordered desperately. Offer them anything they want, but get engineer Dong Su back before our people are crushed. Her advisors buzzed nervously. Queen Brixnall, the humans have not responded to any messages from any species. They seem to have completely cut off contact with the galaxy. Then send more messages. She screamed as another section of her city fell into sinkholes. Offer them gold. Offer them planets, offer them anything. But the humans had made their decision. They were not coming back to fix problems for species that had treated them like ignorant children. All across the galaxy, the domino effect was accelerating systems built by human expertise were failing. Infrastructure maintained by human knowledge was breaking down. Conflicts prevented by human diplomacy were erupting into wars. The advanced alien civilizations were discovering that their advancement had depended heavily on the contributions of the species they had considered most primitive. Dr. Yun Young sat in her monitoring station on Earth watching the chaos unfold through long-range sensors. She had predicted this collapse months ago, but even she was surprised by how quickly everything was falling apart. The galaxy had been like a complex machine where humans were the oil that kept everything running smoothly. Now, without that oil, the machine was tearing itself apart through friction and neglect, and this was just the beginning. The worst was yet to come. 1 year after the Great Human Exodus, the Galactic Council officially ceased to exist. The Grand Chamber, where thousands of alien species had once gathered in arrogant splendor, now floated empty and dark in space. Half the building had collapsed when its human-designed support systems failed. Wars raged across former member worlds as species blamed each other for the catastrophe. The Reptilian Empire had split into 3 warring factions fighting over the remaining habitable planets. The Insect Confederacy was extinct after their hive cities collapsed, killing 90% of their population. The beautiful Kavari bird people were down to their last million survivors living in refugee camps on barren moons. Their golden homeworld was a graveyard of empty cities where billions had starved when the synthetic food ran out. Trade between star systems had completely stopped without human shipping networks. Entire civilizations were cut off from the galaxy, living in isolation. As their technology failed without human maintenance, the energy beings called Luminar had dimmed to barely visible shadows of their former selves on what remained of the crystal world. Celestine, former master architect Lux Andra, picked through the rubble of her greatest city trying to salvage anything useful. Her crystalline body was cracked and dim, without the molecular stabilizers that humans had provided. A small shuttle landed nearby, and Luxandra looked up hopefully, thinking it might be human rescuers. Instead, former council speaker Vextar climbed out of the craft. His once proud insect body was bent with exhaustion and defeat. I am traveling to the human worlds, he told her quietly. Will you come with me to ask for their forgiveness? Lux Andra stared at him in shock. You, the great speaker who called humans primitive creatures, you want to beg them for help? Vextar's 4 arms hung limply at his sides. I was wrong. We were all wrong. The humans were never primitive. They were the most advanced species in the galaxy, and we were too blind to see it. Together, the 2 former leaders traveled to Earth's orbital station where they requested an audience with human officials. The station was clean and bright with perfect life support systems that worked flawlessly. Unlike the failing alien technology, everything human-made still functioned perfectly. Fleet Commander Ji-hoon met them in a simple conference room. His manner was professional, but cold. The human officer had lost friends during the galactic chaos that followed the Exodus, and he was not feeling particularly merciful. What do you want, he asked, without offering them seats. Vextar struggled to find words that had never crossed his lips before. We come to ask for forgiveness, and to beg for your help. The galaxy is dying without human knowledge and assistance. Jihoon leaned back in his chair. Why should we help species that called us primitive? Why should we save civilizations that laughed at our requests for equal treatment? Because you are better than us, Luxandra said quietly, her crystal voice ringing with truth. We thought advancement meant having older technology and larger empires, but real advancement means wisdom and compassion, things that humans possess more than any other species. The human commander studied their faces, seeing genuine humility for the first time. These proud beings who had once dismissed humanity as barely civilized were now admitting their complete dependence on human knowledge. What exactly? Are you asking for? Jihoon wanted to know. Vextar took a shaking breath. We want humans to return to galactic civilization, but not as junior members begging for scraps. We want you to lead us. We want to learn from you. We want to become better beings, like you. The conversation was recorded and sent to Earth, where President Sujin watched it with her full cabinet. The woman who had authorized the Great Withdrawal now faced the decision of whether to end it. The aliens have learned their lesson, said Defense Minister Chang Ho. The galaxy is completely broken without us. They cannot survive independently. But Foreign Minister Hee Suk was more cautious. How do we know this humility is real? What happens when their civilizations recover? Will they return to their old arrogance? President Sujin considered the question carefully. She had studied the alien psychology reports for months. The complete collapse of galactic civilization had shattered their sense of superiority in ways that would take generations to rebuild. We will return to help them, she decided finally. But the galaxy will be rebuilt according to human principles. Cooperation instead of domination. Mutual respect instead of hierarchy. Every species gets an equal voice in decisions. The terms were presented to the surviving alien leaders and accepted immediately. The alternative was extinction, and they knew it. The new cooperative council would be based on Earth with human leadership, guiding galactic reconstruction. Engineer Yujin was among the first humans to return to space. She found herself working alongside aliens who treated her with genuine respect instead of condescending tolerance. Kavari scientists hung on her every word as she taught them sustainable agriculture. Crystalline architects studied her building techniques with humble attention. The reconstruction was slow and painful. Many worlds remained uninhabitable. Many species were extinct or nearly so, but the survivors worked together in ways they never had before, sharing knowledge freely instead of hoarding it. Captain Min Su commanded mixed crews of humans and aliens on the new exploration ships. He watched with amazement as former enemies worked side by side to map safe hyperspace routes. The reptilian navigator SSK Jun took orders from human officers without complaint. His scales showing the blue patterns of respect. Dr. Sun Young established medical centers on recovering worlds where human and alien doctors learned from each other. The surviving Aquarian physician Glebnar admitted that human medical intuition was superior to his species' mathematical approach to healing. Most importantly, the galaxy developed new cultural values based on human examples. Compassion became more important than conquest. Creativity was valued over rigid logic. Species that had warred for millennia found peaceful solutions to their conflicts using human mediation techniques. Former Speaker Vextar spent his remaining years writing a historical record of the Great Collapse. He called it the Year of Learning, and dedicated it to the human species who had saved galactic civilization through their quiet wisdom. In the book's conclusion, he wrote, "We thought we were teaching primitive humans how to be civilized. But they were actually teaching us what civilization really means. Not technology or territory, but the simple kindness that makes life worth living." Ambassador Kyungsoo established the new council chambers on Luna, where representatives from surviving species met as equals. The building was designed with human aesthetics, emphasizing harmony and cooperation instead of dominance and fear. The galaxy that emerged from the ashes was smaller, but wiser. Species that survived did so by embracing human values of mutual aid and peaceful cooperation. The age of arrogant empires had ended, replaced by an age of collaborative growth. Professor Chan Wu returned to his role as galactic mediator, but now his work was celebrated instead. Of invisible alien leaders sought his advice, openly acknowledging that human diplomatic wisdom surpassed their own. The great human withdrawal had taught the galaxy its most important lesson. Sometimes the most powerful demonstration of strength is simply walking away with dignity. When humanity finally returned, it was not as subjects begging for acceptance, but as teachers showing the way forward. The species that had once called humans primitive now looked to them as the most advanced civilization in the galaxy, not because of their technology, but because of their character, and that made all the difference.